time. The Honorable Murugara will speak before the Honorable Lisa Chilule.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think even the mover and the seconders were in a dilemma when it comes to moving a bill for rejection. Ordinarily, when motions are brought, it's supposed to be for support. But here we are in a catch-22 because the bill emanates from another house. And now they have to move the way they are doing it in negative. That notwithstanding, and without casting any aspersions on the House of the Senate, as I'm bad to do so by standing order number 87, there are many problems with this bill which necessitate its opposition and a call for its rejection. In fact, to be polite, as they say in English, this bill is a right royal mess emanating from the Senate. You know, in England, the king cannot be wrong, and where he is wrong, they simply say he is right, but it's a mess. I have looked at this bill, and what concerns me most is that the House of Senate and the mover of the bill in that house may have been oblivious of the fact that all the matters that are listed as natural resources are actually governed by different acts of parliament which have different provisions, including sharing of revenue between the national government and the county government. The first natural resource that is listed is actually sunlight. We may have difficulties understanding how we'll be sharing sunlight unless where we are talking about energy generated from solar, and this cuts across counties and it possibly involves the national government. We have surface water and underground water also being shared. And here again, we do have problems with water flowing from one county to another, and there may be need for an agreement on how to share that water, which may actually cause a lot of problems. And there are very many other resources that are actually listed here, without a mention that every natural resource in the country actually has an act of parliament which governs it. And there may be fear and risk of duplicity when it comes to passing a law similar to this one, including when it comes to wildlife resources. We have the Wildlife Act, the Management Act. When it comes to geothermal resources, we do have the Energy Act. We have the Mining Act for minerals, Petroleum Act for petroleum, and all this. There is a possibility that the drafters of this bill were oblivious of these laws, and now that does pose a risk when it comes to enactment of a law such as this one. I've also looked at the format of its drafting, and there are issues regarding this. For example, when it comes to guiding principles of benefit sharing in section 4, subsection B reads that we would have revenue maximization and adequacy. Adequacy is not defined, and adequacy is actually, it cannot be guaranteed. It depends on what we are sharing, whether it is adequate or inadequate. It is actually shared. We then have a different way of drafting, and that is to be found in section 5, subsection 2, paragraph D. This is where we are forming an authority that is supposed to be governing benefit sharing. And it reads that the authority is capable of doing or performing such other things or acts for the proper performance of its functions under this act, which may be lawfully done or performed by a body corporate. There are issues here. Number one, in the legislative drafting, we cannot talk about such other things. It is such other functions. When it comes to performance in drafting, it is actually discharge of duties. Then a question begs as to why we would be saying which may be lawfully done or performed by a body corporate. Body corporates do different things. Why would we import what other body corporates do into a statute like this one? Another problem I was able to pick out are functions of the authority, and I took particularly section 6 subsection 1D, oversee the administration of funds set aside for community projects to be implemented under a benefit sharing agreement. This is the authority that is overseeing sharing of benefits set aside for a community, which money under this act is to be administered by the county government. How does a national authority oversee what the counties do? There are possibly going to be a conflict here, and unless that is actually resolved, then it's a recipe for intergovernmental conflict. Subsection 2 is even more interesting. It talks about the authority may, in the furtherance of its functions, collaborate with such other bodies or organizations within or outside Kenya as it may consider necessary for the better performance of its functions under the Act. This, in essence, means the authority can actually move to other ministries and seek collaboration with the ministries independently, which may again cause problems. But when it comes to the outside world, outside Kenya, who is this authority that will move to international organizations and seek collaboration without going through the necessary diplomatic channels of the country? And there are many other problems that can be pointed out in this particular act. Then we move to section 7, which now appoints the authority. And this is the most interesting of all the sections. We have a chairperson to be appointed by the president with approval of parliament. The question here is, how can parliament approve appointment to an authority which is not a constitutional authority? Below that, as I summarize, I see my time is up. We even have
Honorable Murugara, if I give you 2 minutes, nobody else would have a chance to speak.
No problem. We will continue tomorrow. I happily see it is slated. I wish I don't feel.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo and Honorable Lisa Chelule are very anxious to say something before we adjourn. I have 1 minute.
And what is exciting with that is we have the cabinet secretary making some particular appointments of authority members with approval of parliament. And this cannot go any further. There is no way a cabinet secretary can make an appointment and then seek that appointment to be approved by parliament. And here, again, it has to be made clear, parliament here stands for the two houses, the National Assembly and the Senate. Is it both of them to approve, or it's one of them? I would have pointed out so many of what I consider to be inconsistencies with this particular bill, but because time is up, I wish to voice my opposition and I urge the House to reject the bill. Thank you very much.
Honorable Millie Grace Odhiambo for House Balance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will start off by thanking the committee for giving the report. And I want to say I'm not very persuaded by the committee on the issue of total rejection. And I would want to look more comprehensively at the report.